Hi guys, so welcome back. I just want to talk briefly about Dr. Umar Johnson and his father, this whole issue that they have, which I find to be quite disheartening. But I'm also a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. So even though they have not been in communication with each other for a while, it's like been several years now, and I've kind of been brought into that mix a little bit. There was a point in time when I was brought into it when Dr. Umar Johnson's father, Jamal, commented on one of my videos on YouTube, expressing his opinion, concerning Dr. Umar Johnson and the work that he's doing in the black community. And he was speaking pretty much against his son. And of course, me as a supporter of Dr. Umar Johnson, I came to his defense, and we were kind of going back and forth a little bit. And then I proposed the idea of us talking offline, off of social media, because I think sometimes, things can get lost in communication depending on the context in which that conversation is being had. So I decided to move the conversation offline and, gave him my contact information, and we talked, and, we talked by phone, and, I really felt for his father because I realized that it had got to a point where there was a lot of hard negative feelings harbored towards each other. It's one thing when a person, let's say, disagrees with another person, whether it be a family member or a friend, right? At the level of disagreement, I think things are easy. It's easier to work things out at that level. But when those negative feelings, beyond just feeling, in disagreement with it towards a person, but those negative feelings begin to fester and grow deeper, and time begins to the time in terms of the distance that's being created, the amount of time that grows and creates this distance between two people who are family members or friends, the greater that time is, sometimes the more difficult it is to repair that relationship. So, two people may go a week without speaking, right? And if that week turns into a month, then maybe they stand a chance at reconnecting, after that month of not speaking. But we're talking about months and months added upon months of not speaking to a person. A lot can transpire within that amount of time. And when we're talking about blood, well, I think it doesn't really matter if it's blood or if it's friendship, because sometimes, friends, we hold the same expectations of our friends as we do our own family members, right? And I'm holding my hands like this because it's a little chilly. But, in holding the expectation of a person to be there for you, especially during difficult times that you're going through, to have your back. And the longer that time elapses, the more time elapses, right? The longer that distance grows, the more hurtful I think it is. The more the hurt grows within a person. And I think it's gotten to a point even where Dr. Umar Johnson verbalized that he doesn't have any interest in speaking to his father. And I know he has said that numerous times before, but we're talking about years later, where recently he did a live video, and I was on his live. I think he was at the site of the FDMG Academy in Delaware, and I had made a comment because I saw I saw his father, Jamal's post saying that he wanted to connect with his son. And so I relate that information, to Dr. Umar Johnson on Dr. Umar Johnson's live video. And I said, hey, your dad needs to speak to you. And he saw my comment and he was just like, he has nothing to say to his father. He doesn't want to speak to his father. And I was just like, wow, he was like, basically his rationale is that he doesn't want to communicate with anyone who is against his mission. He's on a mission to help save the lives of African American children, and in saving African American children, you save the family, you save the community. And he's very serious about that mission, despite the naysayers, despite what, some people may have their opinion about him. They don't believe that he's doing enough. And, I think we all should take responsibility in bringing about change within the African American community. We should not put that burden and responsibility on just one person. So that's a problem in and of itself when we have this expectation that one person, one leader should be able to fix all of the problems in the black community when we're just kind of sitting on the sidelines, not doing anything. And so, of course, there's been some criticism towards Dr. Umar Johnson with respect to his school not opening yet. And people are like, oh, he's been talking about this school for X number of years. And, they feel that he should be further along in the process. The school should have been open now. And, who's to say? Because building an institution as a school takes a while, and especially if you don't have that much support. He has support, but not to the extent that it could be from the black community, and it's just disheartening. And so seeing Dr. Umar Johnson respond in that way, saying that he has no interest in speaking to his father, communicating, with his father, or any, he doesn't really, he's I think doing that to protect himself, because his father has a different perspective, and his father has publicly sided with Dr. Umar Johnson's detractors and naysayers. He shares similar opinions and perspectives as the people who have been attacking him. And it's really unfortunate. And so when you have a situation like that, it's kind of hard to repair that. Now, as a therapist, as a person who's been working in mental health for many years, and as a doctor in clinical psychology, training myself, I'm training to become a clinical psychologist, I wouldn't say that one should lose hope in terms of being able to repair anything. Right? It's almost as if we as therapists, we should have this level of hope, of optimism with regard to being able to treat people, right? Being able to reverse the damage and the trauma that has happened in people's lives. But when we're talking about years and years and years and years upon hurt and pain and trauma that has festered and has grown, to assume that that's going to be easy to fix, that's just like a quick fix in one day in terms of a phone conversation and making an apology, I don't think it's that simple. So it's really unfortunate, where they stand as father and son. I think that it would be better to see them, come together. Someone commented on one of my posts and was curious about the separation between father and son, and wondering why there is a separation, And I began to explain to them why. And this person asks, okay, so what is Dr. Umar Johnson's father doing to help the black community? And I almost came to Jamals Johnson defense very quickly and almost got defensive and said, what are you doing? But I paused and I responded to say, to share what Jamal is doing to help the black community in terms of his campaign that he's been running for several years now, called Stop Killing Us, SKU, where he is fighting against police brutality and against black on black crime. Locally where he's from, in Pennsylvania and up the East Coast. And so I think it's beautiful to see father and son both very serious about their missions, and overall it's pretty much targeted towards the black community, to help the black community. I think that's a beautiful thing, and I think there's an art to it. It's an irony to see, father and son so passionate about their work, but yet so distant from each other. I am hopeful that one day maybe they will be able to reconnect, but we're talking about hurt and pain, that something that just can't be fixed in one day. It's almost as if a child being abused physically or sexually by their parent, right? That's not, especially if they suffered years and years and years and years of abuse, that's not something that can be undone and fixed just by a phone conversation. So it's similar in that sense, because perhaps Dr. Umar Johnson feels abused, verbally. He feels threatened. He feels under attack, not only from people who don't even know him, but his own father. I think the pain hits deeper when it comes from someone that you expect had to love you. You expect to have your back, and they do the opposite. At least that's how you perceive it in your mind, that, he believes that his father has ill intent towards him. Because when you have people, naysayers, who are speaking negatively towards you and your mission, and then you have family members who are saying the same exact thing, it's very difficult to differentiate between the two, though they may have different intentions. It's very difficult because the message just sounds the same. So the pain that he's felt from his naysayers publicly berating him and castrating him, speaking negatively towards him and about him, defaming his reputation, that pain that has festered for so many years, it is confounded by the pain, the words that have come from his father, So I definitely can understand where Dr. Umar Johnson is coming from and saying that, he's not interested in entertaining a conversation with his dad, because it is easier to avoid those difficult conversations. It's easier to say, you know what, no, I'm not going to do this, to avoid it, to avoid even confronting the issue. It's easier because in his mind he may assume that it's not purposeful, it's not going to come to a resolution. It may not yield the result that he's looking for, that he's expecting. Perhaps in his mind he's expecting his father to apologize, to agree with him, to support him 100%. But obviously that's never going to happen. He hasn't done it. So why at this point would he do it based on a confrontation over the phone or face to face? It's just not going to happen. That's just like an adult child somehow expecting a parent who abandoned them to come to terms and apologize and just be that parent that they wanted them to be. You know, it's unfortunate. It's not gonna happen. So it's almost like grieving the loss of something that you will never have, that you never had and you never will have. It's a loss because in your mind you created this reality that doesn't even exist. You created this false perception that in your mind was a reality, a hopeful reality that, Jamal Johnson would support Dr. Umar Johnson and his mission, but it never happened. Especially not in the way that he wants it to happen. So with regard to the most recent incident that happened where Dr. Umar Johnson became very frustrated, triggered and angry concerning his detractors, his haters, he took to social media and said that, he was looking for the addresses of these people, several people that have spoken negatively, towards him. And of course his father saw the video and he made a video in response shaming Dr. Umar Johnson and correcting him publicly, saying that that was wrong, he shouldn't have done that, and that he should be careful with his words that he says online. And I agree with his father to a certain extent. I think him being a father, he's only concerned about his son's safety and making sure that his son, isn't arrested or isn't harmed by someone else in the black community in retaliation to his things that he said publicly. So I definitely understand where his father is coming from. However, I just think that what's the point is does it really serve a purpose? Is it effective? That's the bigger question. Is what his father is doing in terms of the video he made when he was in the dark most recently, is it effective to say what he said? I mean, meaning, is it really gonna change anything? Is it gonna change Dr. Umar Johnson's behavior? I don't think it will. I don't think anything is going to change as long as these people continue to try to sabotage the mission and try to shut down his venues that he has events scheduled for. As long as that continues, Dr. Umar Johnson it's just going to trigger him even more. It's going to rile up more energy within him because he's protecting his mission, right? He's doing his best, and that's in his mind how he can protect it, by coming to social media and trying to do something about it. He did not directly say what he was going to do with those addresses, but it was implied that he was going to show up at those people's doorstep and handle it. But you can't really assume anything. You can't say, okay, he was going to do that, because he didn't necessarily articulate a plan of action or anything. And words can be interpreted in many different ways. So for someone to say, oh, they're going to press charges and this is going to happen, he's going to be arrested, one can't really draw that conclusion. You can't really make that assumption because words can take the form of many different meanings. The way a person says something, So it can draw the attention, possibly, of the police to the point where they bring him in for questioning. But nothing beyond that, I think, is going to happen. Because there's no evidence, there's no plan of action. There's no evidence of a plan of action that he has plans to go and harm someone or do anything, that's going to cause danger to someone. So that to me is irrelevant. I just wish the best for Dr. Umar Johnson. It's a really difficult journey. I think he knows deep down inside that everything works together, and it's not gonna this pathway that he's on, right? He should not assume that it will be easy, that he will have people attacking him. Thankfully, it hasn't been physical attacks, it's all verbal, and it's all more psychological, I think, than anything. So as him being a doctor of clinical psychology, having a PhD in clinical psychology, and as a certified school psychologist, having studied psychology, I think he should have the strength within himself, the astuteness within himself, to be able to outsmart the psychological attacks that have come at him. He has a lot of support from people within the Black community, so he's not really doing it by himself. It is a long, drawn-out process, seemingly, to get this school open. It's unfortunate to see that the amount of money that is required to open this school. I mean, he purchased the school, so the school is bought, right? He owns the property, but in terms of the taxes, that have to be paid out, it's just like mind-blowing. You're talking about over $100K per year, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's like buying the school all over again, right? So he has to deal with the financial costs and the responsibility of having to raise all of this money, then is being attacked on social media, all these videos that are being made to downplay his mission and to create this, narrative about him and who he is. People are saying he's, a scam artist. So that obviously, it doesn't help. It doesn't help, but it does help, So there's like a parallel process that's happening, Of course, it doesn't help because you have some people that are kind of weak and they buy into those beliefs, those narratives, those negative narratives that defame his reputation and his character. But then it helps to the extent that people who are smart enough to read between the lines, who may have not even known who Dr. Umar Johnson is, they come to find him through these negative videos, because we know negativity spreads pretty fast. And then they find out for themselves what the truth is, to see that he's just a Black man who has a genuine interest in giving back to the Black community. So no, he's not perfect. He has flaws, and I think before all these attacks happened, I think he was more pure at heart. But then, of course, when you are attacked psychologically, and how he's been attacked, that can take a toll on a person, And of course, there's going to be a response. And I've said this before, I think it would be helpful for him to get therapy. Therapy is useful for everyone, not just people who work within the field. I mean, research has shown that helping professionals, whether you are a psychologist or a medical doctor, psychiatrist, a therapist, a social worker, teachers, law enforcement, no matter your role in terms of a helping professional, like, we are at risk for burnout, for compassion fatigue. So given that he's dedicated his whole entire life towards his mission, I'm sure he experiences fatigue, and on top of that, he's being attacked. He's going through as much as he's been through publicly, the embarrassment, the belittlement, being berated, that can take an emotional and psychological toll on a person. So having said all that, I think, yes, it would be helpful for him to seek out therapy from a trusted person that can be very difficult though and tricky, because seeking out therapy from a licensed professional is hard in of itself just as a regular person who no one knows. So just imagine being a person who everyone knows, you know, he's a public figure and you're looking for a therapist. Imagine the likelihood and the risk for a therapist trying to take advantage, and you know, the whole risk about, will his information be confidential? How can they keep his information confidential that's being shared? And you know, people try to buy out a person's therapy records. You know, they got people that do weird, stupid shit like that, you know, and money talks in our society. So it's just a lot that he has to consider, unfortunately, but it'll be helpful, you know. Maybe it can be a person that is just not even American. Sometimes it's better just to go far, far away to someone, to a place where someone doesn't even really know who he is, and the impact of what can come from that therapy interaction, right? So, yes, you know, I just encourage everyone who does support Dr. Umar Johnson to continue supporting him and stay positive, stay hopeful, stay prayerful in this. And his father also should get some help, you know, because he has a lot on his shoulders too. Jamal Johnson has a lot that he's dealing with as a father who has a son that doesn't want to communicate with him. That's something that he may end up having to take to his grave. So it's just, the situation is pretty dynamic, but going forward, you know, I'm very hopeful that things will pull through for Dr. Umar Johnson and, you know, his mission to build the FDMG Academy. I already made several videos about, you know, seeing the school open on opening day, the grand opening day of the FDMG Academy, and the ribbon cutting ceremony. I would love to be there. So keep going at it, Dr. Umar Johnson. You're a very strong, wise, intelligent man, and you were called for this position. No other person was called for this position that you have been called and created for. So this is you. You've come too far, you know, to give up. You know the art of war. So it's really, that's what it's about. It's, you know, it's a war game going on. So just be strong, and as you've been strong, you know, you're fighting through it. And so keep doing what you're doing. I love you, and I love everyone who's watching this video. Take care.